Good morning, everybody. How's our morning so far? Good. All right. Confirmation as always welcome. So we had the reading. Can you guys hear me? Hello? Check, 1, 2. Better? Okay. Like I have to eat it. Is it better? No? Should I stay in front of here? Let's try that. Hello? Is that better? All right. We'll go without this today. Which is okay because it kind of hurts my ear. All right. So let's start out with the title of the message today. Well, no, first of all, we'll start by thanking our visitors for coming today. And we'll thank our online listeners for listening to us. Now that we're online and we're on YouTube and Facebook, the likes, I don't know if there's likes, but there's views, and you can see how many people see it. And I've talked to a few people already, those in the hospital or those who can attend, and they're kind of excited that it's there, just available to them. I don't know if they got on it, but the fact that they were excited about it, that it gets me excited too. So that's the first thing. Now we can move on to the title. We have from Proverbs chapter 16, verse 27. Idle hands are the devil's workshop, and idle lips are his mouthpiece. Love that quote. I love that quote. First time I heard of it, I didn't know it was from the Bible. I mean, you guys know how new I am to this, but I heard this a long time ago, and it just fits so well. It really does. And the more you think about it, the more you can apply it to the different things in your life, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. But now before I move on again, I keep flip-flopping, I'm sorry, but next week is Thanksgiving. We talked about that. So we are going to meet in the back room. And we are going to do communion back there too. A little different. We're not going to do it like we've been doing it, obviously, where you do it after you leave, because most of you will probably be full by then, I would imagine. But what I want you to do, I'm going to give you homework for the first time, which probably won't be the last. But as our congregation has evolved since I started, we've got a certain standard or a certain characteristic to us that we define well, and that's our sense of humor. We laugh quite a bit, and I love that. It brings us together closer, and we talk about it afterwards, which is the whole point of this. So next week, for Thanksgiving, I want each of you to bring a joke with you. If you have questions on whether it's appropriate or not, you can ask me. But I do want you to bring a joke to share with everybody, and so we can laugh while we enjoy Thanksgiving and fellowship with each other. So, now we're going to move on. So who wrote 2 Thessalonians? Who wrote it? Right, we say Paul. Something I found out today is it's kind of sketchy. It's not a definitive thing where they know, yeah, he wrote it. Remember we talked about before how there's been a couple letters in question whether it was written by him or after him by his followers and then signed by him. This is one of those. So it is attributed, it begins with, and I'm going to say this name wrong, Paul, Silvanus, and Timothy to the church. So that's who it's addressed to. And it ends with, I, Paul, write this, greeting my own hand, which is the distinguishing mark in all my letters. If that was him, I don't think he would be the one writing that, because he knows what his distinguishing mark is, so it's kind of suspicious. But as far as everybody else knows, Paul wrote it. That's what they think. So that's what we're going to say, that Paul did write it. But just so you know, it's not a definitive thing. So we start in the beginning with verse 6. The first part of the first sentence is, now here is a command. We start off the majority of the things that we talk about with an immediate urgency of call. Like, we're supposed to be looking at this right now. And that's what it tells us. And so it brings us our attention right away. And it shows the importance of it too. So And then let's finish it. Dear brothers and sisters, given in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, by his authority, stay away from any Christian who spends his days in laziness and does not follow the ideal of hard work we set up for you. Does that kind of go against what we believe? We're supposed to stay away from them? So we're asked, and like we talked about, this is one of the hardest things, to forgive our enemies and to pray for them, for the goodness of them, even though they did us wrong. So now we're seeing this persona of laziness with these fellow Christians, and we're supposed to stay away from them. Counterproductive. Why would he ask us to do that? Well, you ever been yelled at by your parents? You know, you hang out with a group and you take on their characteristics. You know, oh, if you weren't hanging out with that boy, you wouldn't have done that. I know it. That ever happen? And so this is what we're seeing here. They're not saying we're not supposed to save those. We're not supposed to get those people to come to God. What they're saying is it is infectious. And so whether you like it or not, something's going to rub off. And you may not even know it until afterward. But that's what they're talking about. And we're going to talk about how difficult this is for pastors. Because if we jump to verse 10, it says, even while we are still here with you, we give you this rule: he who does not work shall not eat. That's horrible, isn't it? You're going to deny people just because you don't think, isn't that being judgmental? And isn't that something we're told not to do? And we're supposed to do it. And this is hard too, because this is now, this is a minefield for pastors, because now anywhere you step, somebody on doing something can explode on you. And you never know who it's going to be. This is why it's also difficult just to be a pastor in general, because you're going to say something that's going to irritate somebody. You're going to say something that's going to get somebody to question you or doubt in something that they thought of their whole life. And the funny part is even if you agree with it, you'll still deny it because it's not something you've heard before. That's kind of funny. So it's this open-mindedness we're going to talk about too. But the first part of this, of verse 10, we talked about, even while we are here, still there with you, we give you this rule. It's said a little differently in other books. And what it shows is that Paul has had to address this before. This point of laziness, this point of idleness that we talk about. And it is a reoccurring thing. We talk about all the time how we have to keep ourselves in check as Christians. We have to look at each other and look at those around us and make sure that we are doing the right thing. It's really easy to stray off the path, especially when what you want is not what God wants. And so this is just, he's bringing it up again, and it's another reminder, basically. And so this goes against the grain we talked about. What I want you to do is, I want you to look at the big picture of what this is. So even though there are things out of this, and even in our future sermons that we listen to, there are things you don't agree with, but you understand where it's coming from, that's okay. Because there can be something else that can connect to another verse, to another chapter, to another book, and it'll enlighten you personally, and you'll grow as a Christian. I mean, it'll just happen subconsciously or inevitably, but it'll happen. And so our morals, and this is what we talked about when we're saying we're not supposed to do this. Well, as Christians, we're told we're supposed to help everybody. Doesn't matter who, doesn't matter when, we're supposed to do it. And so our morals will try to overtake the message that we're talking about here. But try to suppress it if you can. I broke this down into two separate parts. The first part, we're going to talk about the matters of concern within the Christian community. Gosh, I feel like I'm in a cage. I can't get away. Within the Christian community. So we have to keep ourselves in check, that we talked about. We got to bring it internally. And the first part of this has no double meaning. How many services have we had, since I started at least, where you've heard something you've never heard before, or you could think of it this way, you could think of it that way, and you choose which one you think is right. This really isn't it. This is internal within the Christian community, and this is where it's focused at, and we have to look at this. So we talked about, let me see if it's believers. Yeah, it's not in this one, but they emphasize believers. They talk about the brothers and sisters. Here it is, dear brothers. And so it's including everybody, they're not excluding women, okay? They emphasize the believers because they're looking at the communal, internal Christian faith. So you're checking yourselves. And so this confirms how, as Christians, we keep each other in check. We have to look to each other. And I think it was last Sunday, we talked about how important it is to pray with your spouse and those people around you. And a lot of people left with smiles that day. I'm not sure if any of you actually did it, but you realized how you feel just thinking about it. And that's pretty impressive. To change a whole demeanor before you get a chance to apply it, but you leave enlightened and happy and euphoric. And that, again, is just going to help you grow internally and subconsciously. And now is the part of the passage where you've heard over and over and over again. We're addressing the idleness of, and it's really easy to be idle. I mean, how many people choose to procrastinate? Is it just me, really? Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, it's so much better. Oh, just eat ice cream, watch TV versus, hey, go take the garbage out. No, I choose ice cream every single time. And I know you will too, but we'll break the idleness down into two parts too. There's irresponsibility and there's insubordinate behavior. So we're laughing because we know what we're supposed to do and we're choosing not to. That's why we're laughing. So it's this irresponsibility to ourselves, but who else? God, did I hear that? What about our fellow Christian too? If we're not helping ourselves and we're not bettering ourselves as Christians, how can we help those around us? We'll either plateau or we'll end up going downhill. And then we have to build ourselves up. And it's way more difficult to build yourself up from nothing. Believe me, I've done it. And so the insubordinate part, and we talked about it just a second ago, who are we being insubordinate to? Who's our superior? Say it. You don't have to point. Say it. Come on. God, why are you so shy today? Is it just because our DS is here? Come on now. All right. So we look at this as rebelling against the community because it's an internal struggle. It starts in steps. So we look at ourselves, then it goes out to the community, and then it just keeps blossoming from there. And we can see how there are different characteristics in every single level that we're talking about. I will give you an example in verse 8. We never accepted food from anyone without buying it. We worked hard day and night for the money we needed to live on, in order that we would not be burdened to any of you. So, why is he addressing money? Is money a main priority to the apostles? Is that what they wanted to do? They only spread God's word because they want to make a quick buck? No. They did this because they felt it, right? The reason it was brought up is because in this Greco-Roman time they're talking about, remember, Paul's a Roman. He's part of the Republic, and he was the one who kept getting put in jail because of it. There was a lot of tricksters. So a lot of you know about the Old West when they would have these elixirs that would cure everything, but they would put mercury in it and things like that that would kill us. And they peddled it just to make money. Well, these tricksters were around all the time, especially in the main city, trying to make a quick buck. They would rip people off, they would steal from them. And so when they saw Paul doing this, when he was teaching things that were against what they believed, they said that he was one of those peddlers. He was somebody who was just corrupting people, trying to get a quick buck out of them. And this is why it was so important to address, because he explains why this isn't true. He looks at it as, yeah, this is what we do. We could take money, absolutely. They had followers, so people would have given them money knowing that this is where they stand and this is where they want to be. But they said no, and he rarely took money when he had to, only to eat. And so that's why he said that. Other Christians are harmed from this undisciplined behavior. We talked about that a second ago too. So who can be harmed from this? Do you think if everybody's idle, that everything's just going to be okay? So who's going to be hurt from this? And this is this urgency we talk about. It's a call to arms. It's a call to education. It's a call to move forward in your Christian life, right? So who is it going to affect? Everybody. Very good. It's going to affect you, your spouse, your children, your family, your friends, your relationship with God, your Christian beliefs, your education to God, your furtherment, everything. And this is why we can't be out. And we're not. The thing that we did with these boxes is amazing. You know how many people it's going to help? One little thing changes people's lives. You pick something up. We talked about this too. You pick up something, or you give somebody a ride. This one turning point, and if you see a change in your life, you can pretty much narrow it down to something that happened, and would bring up marriage again. What were you like single, and what were you like married now? Guys, can you do whatever you want? And yeah, that's what I thought. It's funny how all the women laugh when I ask that question, and the men are still silent. You know what you're doing, don't you? So how does this apply now? How can we look at this, that we're talking about the idle hands of people back then, and apply it now? We've talked about how it's easy to do it. We see now in the election and all these laws that are being passed now, things that we never thought would even come to light. Like we're talking about the laws with homosexuality, and we're talking about the laws with certain drugs like marijuana and things like that. And then you look at what happened in the 90s. A law was passed to stop smoking ads in newspapers, on TV. That happened in my lifetime. And so I know going back, you guys generationally can see other things that have been stopped. So you have the anti-bullying thing that's going on now. It's a big deal. And so what I'm trying to get at is there's a massive movement of individuality. Way back in the day, maybe even in your time, conformity was, first of all, easiest. It's easy to conform. I'll just follow that guy. Yeah. And so the funny thing is, if that was true, why isn't everybody a Christian? Why do we have atheists and agnostic people if it's easiest to conform? So that means they have to actually work to be in the state that they're in. Kind of interesting to think about, isn't it? Think about where their mindset is. But so this individuality, it's life-changing, not only for the person, but the world. Like we said, smoking, I don't know what the numbers are, but smoking rates have gone down significantly. And I heard somewhere that within the past 10 years, over 70% of kids who were smokers aren't smokers like at the same age group now. So this anti-smoking ads that are going on are changing the world, and for the better, because we know what it does to us now. It's no longer healthy like it was in the 20s, right? So it's an individual movement, and we're changing the world, and we're changing ourselves. And the more we do that, the more difficult it is to relate things that are going on here to what's happening now, because it's not addressed. We don't fully understand. There's no commandment for everything that's happening. Thou shalt not what? You know? So it doesn't always tell us. And this is things we have to do. This is why, as disciples of Christ, to go out and to use what you learn here in the world around you and to apply it to the point where it betters you, yourself, and others around you. That's the whole point, right? And it is difficult. Don't ever think that it's not, because it's going to be difficult until the end, until he comes back. And so, being that there's a huge movement of individuality, do you think that society now would permit a situation where Christians would all choose not to work and would just expect to be fed? Would that happen? Would you guys give up, stop, not do things like this, not talk to each other, not come to church on Sundays? Is it even an option in your mind? And why is that? Because I saw you shaking your heads, that's why I said that. Why is that? Why is it not even a thought? Why is it not a question? Faith. You have faith. You already have it. We're just talking about the different things that pertain to it. That's the exciting part. You have it. And you should be proud of it too. You really should. You've come this far. You've blossomed into who you are. And everybody loves you for it. This is the reason we're all laughing. This is the reason we're all palling around. And every Sunday we're actually genuinely concerned about somebody, or we're genuinely happy to see somebody. We're not just faking it like we do at work, right? Now I know where you work. Yep. Okay. And so, currently, faith is an excuse for irresponsible behavior. This is the last point we're going to talk about. Faith is an excuse for irresponsible behavior. What does that mean? It's a little deep, I know. Faith is faith is an excuse for irresponsible behavior. They kind of don't go along, right? It's a little confusing, but hear me out. When you have faith, is it sometimes easy to look down your nose at somebody? A little bit. If you have faith, is it easier to say, well, I don't need to give to this person because I gave to somebody else? If you have faith, is it easier to say, well, I've been going to church for 15 years, missing one Sunday isn't going to change anything? Or knowing somebody needs prayed for and you just walk away because you have faith? It's a little irresponsible, right? We don't think of it that way. It's a cushion zone in front of us, a crumple zone, if you will, if you're car people out there. That there's some give in it that you think, well, I don't need to do this, or I don't need to do that. But that one moment that you're choosing not to do something may be life-changing for the person next to you. Because can we tell when this point is going to happen? Can we tell when Jesus is going to come back? Does anybody know? Because if you do, please tell me. Exactly. We don't know. And we can't just choose not to be Christians at certain points because we don't feel like it, or we feel like our faith is enough that we're good, so they need to work on themselves on their own. That's the part about not being idle. You may be a Christian, your faith may be very strong, but the idleness is not in your blood. This is why it wasn't a question for you guys to say, well, I don't think I need to come to church anymore. It's not a thing, and it never will be, because God is currently and always present in our lives, right? Yeah. So let's end with verse 12. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, we appeal to such people. We command them to quiet down, to get to work, and to earn their own living. Quiet your minds, pray, look to God. Everything's going to come into play. So, as we go this week, go out. Talk to somebody. That's all you really need to do. Talk to somebody. Pray with somebody. I know how nerve-wracking it can be. I recently prayed with somebody who's a complete stranger. Saw that they were, I didn't tell them who I was. I didn't tell them what I do for a living. I don't really do that a lot, really. I don't tell people that I'm a pastor. I just act it. Meaning, I just offer my services to whoever. And this stranger she was having a really bad day. You could tell. I mean, you can see those people because you've had those bad days. And you just say, this is what I said, at least. I said, I don't know if you're religious or not, but can I pray with you for a minute? And she never answered me whether she was or not. She just said yes. And so if she wasn't religious and she accepted that, where is she going to take it from then forward? And I'm going to stop talking about it before I get emotional now. All right. Amen.